Olivia's arm stretched over Sam's chest. He laid awake petting Miss Mishy at his side, while Olivia snored softly into his neck. The room lit up in a purple glow as Orbit appeared at the foot of the bed. Sam stared at her, motioning for him to talk with his eyes. "Pardon my intrusion, sir. Spitzlittle has sent word." "What is she needing?" Sam eased out from under Olivia and sat on the end of the bed. "Is she all right?" "She is fine. She is asking for something. Something that both Novacor and I feel needs your approval." Sam sighed. "There's a Senate now. There are numerous other people who could field an approval question." He turned back toward bed. Orbit stepped closer. "Sir, she is asking for you to negotiate for 2 more of the cerulean crystals." Sam stopped and looked back at Orbit. "The processor crystal? Like the one in your data center?" Sam raised his hands. "Crackletooth and his daughters used one of those to power up 3 of you AI. What does Spitzlittle need with 2 whole crystals?" "Novacor and I agree, sir. That is why we feel someone physical who has a grasp of the situation needs to sign off on it." Sam stood up, unashamed of his nakedness in front of his AI. "Has she submitted anything about her project?" Orbit pulled up 2 holograms in front of Sam, 2 mechs glowing in amber light. One was similar in body shape to a human, the other was definitively in Finnegan. "She has deemed it the Omega Deus project. Gree seeds are already growing in the frames. Each will have a neutronium power core and a QRF shield coupled with Margot heat dampeners." Orbit stepped closer to the holograms. "The Infinigan mech has taken the name Raga, and the one designed after your form is called the Grendel." Sam stared at the 2 Omegas. "The Gree aren't digital. What does she want the crystals for?" Orbit zoomed in the holograms. "She has overlaid an interface throughout each mech. Every Gree node will be grown around a sensor and input array. She is wanting to mind map the Gree and couple it with bioreactive AI." Sam manipulated the hologram, looking at the wiring. "I don't understand. It's entangled with the Gree branches. This doesn't make sense. Look at this node here. What is that doing?" Orbit nodded. "It seems chaotic and nonsensical, but Nova and I ran the simulations. What she has developed is a symbiotic AI. It would not be able to operate without the Gree growing through it, but it will be a distinct entity. It would be a bonded construct, and it would increase the capability of the ship Gree significantly." Sam took a breath. This has danger written all over it." Sam paced, looking at the holograms. Olivia started stretching in the bed. She crawled over and looked at the floating mech schematics. "I heard parts of that. Oh, wow." She sat up and zoomed in on the swords. "Look at those output cables. Holy crap." Olivia spun the Grendel hologram around, touching different parts and reading the schematic notes. "I don't know half of these components, but they make sense. Oh, wow." She looked at Sam. "The Posar is built to dissipate the massive charges the Oblivions build up. The fighters themselves are built for speed, contact, and temporary storage. No one has ever built a system combat-capable that can do both. The dissipation load needs massive conductors, but what she did here. She's made a discharge-capable fighter." Olivia looked over the Raga. "These things will glow like fucking suns." She spun it over and inspected the arms. "Holy mother of smart. Look at this layered grav plating, with this cabling config." Orbit stepped up beside Olivia. "Exactly. Fully charged, these creations could rip apart moons." Olivia released the hologram. "You're making monsters with this one, Sam." Sam shook his head. "I've taken these people in as mine. Just because they are dangerous doesn't make them any less. If anything, it makes them have to be more." He looked at Orbit. "Run it through the TARPA Council for approval. Let them know I approve personally, but they need to sign off before I authorize the funding." He slipped on a pair of underwear. "Olivia, you're a pilot." She looked at him. "Yeah. You did basic, but you weren't trained to be face-to-face. You weren't trained to feel the killing. You've always been a step removed." She stood up in front of him. "Yeah, I get it. Infantryman. You're a killer." He looked into her eyes. "These Gree Spitzlittle is raising are going to be killers, but I don't want that to be all they are. They need more. They will need grounded or else they will be only monsters. He pulled a shirt out. Orbit, send Spitzlittle a directive to build in toolkits. I want these Omega Deus to be capable of more than just wrecking things. Orbit nodded. Message sent, sir. Dam walked into the control room. He stood beside the white glowing hologram of Erebus. The two looked out the tower window at the half-complete ship floating next to the Starlift station. We have revenue from the last shipments? Erebus looked at him with a half-smile. Yes, and 2 more freighters left this morning, sir. Profit is rising, as is our immigrants' population. Any word from Shineless? She sent a 3D card. She and Caroline are staying in her old room in the Infinigan habitat. Her parents even forced a smile for the picture. Erebus pulled up the picture for him. Good. She looks well. Did she mention when she will return? She said soon, and that she misses you, sir. Dam slowly nodded. How is the recruiting standing? We have several potentials, sir. Interviews for the Brumus captain position have been set for this afternoon. Good. And pilots? Erebus pulled up a 20 holographic faces. An experienced pilot named Judith is training a class on Kaworu Prime. I have made our intentions known to them. Dam's breathing eased as he relaxed some. Good. I don't want Sparrow caught off guard. We need a strong navy. Callie watched through the viewfinder as a Fuimos piloted their rigger through the debris. She raised her hand. Grape juice, Cookie, be ready. Knights weapons armed. She watched as the rigger got closer to the ruined ship. Curator, you got the mag arms ready. Curator moved her arms. The rigger ship's arms extended and slowly grabbed the wreck. Arms are good. We're in contact. Extending ramp now. The ramp extended into a large wound in the ship's side. Curator looked through 24 cameras. No sign of movement. No life or energy signs. Boarding is a go. Callie left the viewfinder and walked over to her helmet. She lifted it onto her head and snapped it into place. She holstered her capacitor revolver and went down to the cargo hold. She looked over her assembled team. She smiled at them. Looking good, Cookie. You ready? Cookie grew taller. I am Preserver. I do not like your names. Callie stepped up toward the door. Curator, induce vacuum in the hold. The air hissed out of the hold. Callie looked over at the purple Preserver. You okay with grape juice? The purple Preserver bobbed on its 3 legs. I am okay with your names. Cookie is just in refuse orifice. Callie nodded. But he is our refuse orifice. She smiled as the door opened to the derelict ship and stepped out onto the ramp, her mag boots clicking down firmly with each step. Out on the large strut designated East, a newly constructed cube, financed via loan and built by box spiders, was made to house the new Tar pub. Betsy stood in the door welcoming her fellow Tar into her establishment. Asterion stepped through the door and nodded to the shorter female. Betsy smiled back at him. A human female attempted to follow him in. Betsy held up her hand. Hold yourself, human. What you think you're doing? Asterion paused. She's with me. Betsy looked at him for a moment, glaring. All right. She got a name? Micah stepped past Betsy and winked. Micah, you got a nice place here. Lots of headroom. Betsy huffed through her big nose, turning to the next tower in line. Get in here. First round is on the house. The tower in line cheered and filed inside. A crowd formed around Micah as she sat on a stool telling a story about her vacations to Earth. Moose leaned next to her. What were the cities like? Her eyes widened. Large, full of lights. Everywhere you went was a new smell, a new sight. New people everywhere. Buildings as tall as this station sprouting from the ground. A female Tar oohed. Asterion walked over with a plate of drinks. He lifted a shot and handed it to Micah. She looked around at those gathered. Bruja! On 3. Everyone reached to the plate and grabbed a shot. She raised hers once, twice, and the third she threw it back. The Tor all followed suit. Micah hissed, Oh, good shit, that'll clean me out. Moose shut his eyes as he forced down the burn. Fuck. Yeah. That hit. Asterion leaned in and kissed Micah on top of her head. Go on. I want to hear of your safari again. Micah laughed, animated as she started. Yeah. Oh my God. You all will love this. So I landed in the city of Nairobi in the country of Kenya. Beautiful city. I got a suite over in the Westlands. My girlfriend and I stayed there for a couple days before we went out. She leaned toward Moose. You see, I watched this video about baboons. I wanted to see a baboon, so we left to go stay a week at a lodge. Asterion stepped away back toward the bar. Betsy stared at him as he walked up with a tray of empty glasses. You're doing my job for me. Asterion sat the tray down. You need to let go of whatever madness you have towards the humans. Betsy huffed. I'm not mad. Asterion grabbed a new brew beer off the counter. You are, and I don't blame you. I feel it too sometimes. He took a sip. I can see you've been feeling quite a bit of it, she said, looking over at Micah. Asterion looked at the woman. He could tell from the faces of concern around her that she was at the part where the elephant charged her land cruiser. I pulled each of you from your birth chambers. I helped design you. He looked at Betsy. Betsy stared back into his brown eyes. You see us as your children. He nodded. She filled another glass. I get it. I'll ease up on her. I'll tell the other cows to play nice too. Asterion smiled. Thank you, Betsy. He started back over to the group. She was getting to his favorite part. Sam and Olivia were lounging in the atrium, looking out at the faraway stars. Sam pointed at a blinking light outside off to their left. That there is the North Strut. Orbit was telling me earlier today that it is nearly 20 kilometers already. Olivia saw the blinking blue light. I love this place. It's a toy box out here. You can build anything you want. She looked at Sam. You were really thinking on giving that up? Sam nodded. Still might. It's getting noisy here. Too many people, too many problems, and everyone wants me to solve them. He looked at her. I'm shit at solving even my own problems. I don't think I'm the prime person to solve anyone else's. She pinched his leg and looked back out into space. No one is. Everyone just follows whoever pretends the best. And so far, you're the front runner out here. Maybe. What would you do with this place? Olivia leaned into his shoulder and thought. I'd make that racetrack a priority. Sam laughed. It's already funded and lined out to be built into the new outer ring. The vertical axis ring or the horizontal axis? Sam pointed at the blinking light again. The horizontal. It'll go in with the rings and then Orbit will begin constructing the outer sphere. That's going to be a shit ton of space, she said. Can you make me an ice skating rink? Sam smiled. We will have to make custom skates large enough to fit the tour. And some small enough to fit the scribblers. She laughed. Sam started adjusting on the couch. I need to walk around some. You want to go with me down to check on the farms? She held out her hand as he got up. I'd love to, Mr. Clemens. Sam pulled her up out of the couch and they walked over to the elevator. Sam and Olivia stepped through the protective airlock into the strawberry fields. The ceiling was lit up with long rows of UV lights that stretched the entire length of the field. Olivia shielded her eyes. Sam reached over to the box near the door and pulled out 2 sets of human-fitted light visors. He put hers on, and then his. I'm going to grab a basket. You want your own or share mine? I'll help fill yours. I plan on eating mine. Sam laughed. The grazers are anal. They will send you a bill for any you eat. She laughed back. Seriously? They're watching? Sam shook his head. Not them. They hired a team of fuimos to monitor the fields. They really like being efficient. It sounds like you lucked out in finding them. Sam started walking through the rows of strawberry plants. He knelt down and started picking the bright red fruits and putting them in his basket. Olivia knelt beside him and started picking too. I did, he said. I lucked out with most of the species here. He looked up at her. I think it has something to do with them being uplifted. She put a handful of strawberries into the basket. Modifications? Maybe. I haven't asked the preserver. He'd know, but I figured he was uplifted too. She got up and moved over a row. Olivia knelt back down and started filling her shirt with more strawberries. She took a plump one and popped it into her mouth. Oh, that's good. She pointed at Sam and spoke while chewing. You said the great arm species thought we were uplifted. Sam nodded as he popped a big one into his mouth. That is pretty good. He laughed. They actually breed plants for taste. She nodded and ate another. You can tell. These are badass. Sam chewed the strawberry down. Yeah, they think we are too social. We bond too easily or some shit. I can see that. She sat on her heels. Weird they look down on that, though. They're starting to see through it, though. I'm worried what they'll think when they see our history. She laughed. If they're smart, they'll let us join their club. Orbit runs loops around their AI. I don't think they're smart. Olivia threw a strawberry into the basket. I talked to Smell. He's pretty fucking smart. Sam dropped a handful into the basket on top of the one she threw. Yeah, you're right there. You can just feel it. Olivia nodded. Yeah, he puts of old gray-beard wise vibes, right? Sam nodded. Yep. I can't tell if he's helping us or spying on us. She shrugged. Probably both. A grazer walked down the road towards them. Both the humans looked up as it approached. The grazer got within speaking range and squatted down to talk to them. Sorry to interrupt you two, but I was told to inform you that you are being docked for each berry you eat. Sam looked at the basket. How many do we have to pick to pay for one we eat? The grazer shut its eyes as it did the math. It opened them and gave its response. 27. Sam laughed. All right. Guess we will get to work then. The grazer stood up. It is no problem, Sam. Just keeping honesty. Sam waved as it walked away. He looked over at Olivia. Told you. She laughed. How many times they come over to keep you honest? I've been coming down here more and more as I get stressed. I get a bill before bed every time and it's spot on. He laughed. I kept count once to make sure they weren't screwing me over. He started picking a handful of berries. They keep good books. Olivia started picking more. So, what do you want to do before bed tonight? Sam paused and looked at her, giving her a wink. We've already got plans. Sam had Olivia wear a dress he had custom grown for her. He stood in the entry of his suite as she stepped out. It was a form-fitting red and black dress with matching shoes. She flicked her hair at him. He was dressed in a matching suit. She laughed. Where are we going? He pulled her hand and led her out the front door into the misty hallway. You'll like it. The two walked across the station and into the current outer ring. Sam led them past the trading quarter and past the arcade. Olivia noticed a line of creatures waiting. Sam led her to the front of the line where a Craddock was guarding a door. The Craddock nodded at him and motioned him inside. Seating is just now starting, Mr. President. You can go on in and get situated. Sam nodded. Thank you. Sam led Olivia inside the ornately decorated room. A large chandelier hung from the ceiling 3 stories up, illuminating the entry area. Sam led her over to an usher. Olivia looked and saw the posters. She laughed. Diesel shop? Sam laughed as he led her into the dark auditorium. Best musical ever written. Really? Sam looked at her credulous. Yeah, it's why I decided to be a mechanic. Bunch of guys fixing things, dealing with women drama. She chuckled. You all while singing and dancing around giant prop locomotives. Seriously, did you? Did you get people to do this? Sam smiled. A few of your crewmates petitioned for a loan to fund a troupe. The tubers didn't want to give them a loan. They don't understand musicals, so I bankrolled it. An usher Craddock pointed her to a seat. So they came to you asking for a loan to put on Diesel Shop the musical? Sam sat down in his proffered seat. No, I read about them in my morning report being denied. I went to them, and my condition was Diesel Shop. She adjusted herself and sat beside him, looking out over the now filling hall. Your own personal toy box. He pinched her leg. Shut it, or I won't build that ice rink. She pinched him back. I'll build it myself. Don't worry about it. On Kawaru Prime, Spitzlittle was crawling through the inner corridors of the Grendel, pulling a large sack behind her. She entered into the Gree chamber and walked over to the young fellow. Are you ready for me to start it? The Gree stared at her with its red eye. I am scared. What if it works improperly? Spitzlittle stared at it. The Tsar has 17 cannons aimed at you. It will work properly, or we will cease existing. You will stay inside me during it. Spitzlittle bobbed her ears. I do not want to die alone. Make sure to touch one of my branches when you do it. Spitzlittle tilted her head. We've done the math, and I don't want to die today. She reached up and patted his upper branch. I'm going to go install it. The Greaslow blinked. I will be waiting. She adjusted her breather and took off down one of the corridors. She darted through tiny rooms built for scribblers and leapt over a small rotator chasm joint. She maneuvered down the hallways. The large sack hung over her shoulder like an alien Santa. Spitzlittle reached the inner cradle. The wiring was all done and the cores were prepped. She opened the sack and pulled out a custom-cured cerulean crystal. Beautiful. She licked her lips with her bifurcated tongue. So pretty. She looked at the cradle and spun the crystal around so it would fit into its custom mount. She set the crystal in, and it immediately started drawing power. The Gree imprint uploaded instantly into the processor. Spitzlittle touched the nearby branch. Are you feeling it? The Gree of the Grendel replied over her comms as everything shook. I feel everything. Nova Core and the entirety of the Tsar's camera capability was focused on the now moving Omega Deus. The cannons adjusted, prepping for fire. The Grendel opened comms. Hello, Nova. Hello, Gree. Are you okay? The mech adjusted and sat up slowly. I am still me, but it is like I can think and do things at the same time, like there is a shadow me moving behind my thoughts. It is curious. But does it feel safe? Nova asked. It feels like... The Grendel mech moved its hands, flexing and releasing. It feels amazing. It feels like a body. Spitzlittle joined in the comm channel. System stable. Mirroring took as predicted. No rejection. The Gree of the Grendel stood up. I am ready for my knights, Nova Core replied. Informing them now. Going to open channel. Nova switched over to the Tsar open comm. Grendel designated knights. Report to the field. Your ride is waiting. Spitzlittle typed a message to Sam on her display and sent it. Thank you for believing in me.